Hi, my name's Kaz. Welcome to my Mind and Body class today. I'm here at Christchurch University. We work alongside our parks and we give you 5 classes a week. You just need a mat. You don't need any shoes or socks on. We're going to do some Yin Yoga today. So we're going to do a yoga focus class with some sun salutations, which will get our heart rate up a little bit to get warmer. And then we're going to be doing mostly stuff on the floor. So we sit in a pose for a couple of minutes. It will strengthen and lengthen your muscles. So what's good about it is obviously as we get older, muscle atrophy happens. So the muscle wastage, that's what it is. Collagen that's produced inside the muscle starts to take over a little bit and gets really stiff. It's great for your face, but it's not good for your muscles. So we need to make sure we're strengthening and lengthening our muscles so they continuously stay mobile and not stiff as we get older. And I mean, thank God we are getting older. What's the other alternative? So we just need to make sure we can maintain our body to keep going. So let's get started. I'm going to stand in a nice hip distance stance. So just have your feet. Best way to find a nice hip distance is have your feet together. Then you turn your toes out. Then you turn your heels out. And they're somewhere underneath your hips, I should imagine. So we're just going to make sure that we've got a nice mountain pose set up. This is our neutral spine pose that we want to channel through all our poses. So we have like, not a knee bend, but we don't lock our knees out. So just keep them nice and relaxed. As we come up, we squeeze our abdominals in. We make sure that we're holding our tummies in. Yeah, but we obviously make sure when we're breathing, we breathe down to our abdomen, which is when our belly would come out. So it's a good way to see whether you're working your breath properly. We keep our shoulders relaxed, our eye gaze and our chest forward. This is our basic mountain pose. So we're going to come to the ends of our mats or an end of a room where you've got some distance behind you if you don't have a mat. Standing in that nice neutral mountain pose, you reach your arms up to the ceiling so that we can come into our extended mountain pose. So with fingertips reaching to the ceiling, our prayer position with those hands. Then you're going to turn your palms out and you're going to fold and tip from the hip. So your legs all sort of stay still, bottom stays still. We are folding in half. So we want to try and touch our toes if we can. But if your flexibility takes you here, you've hung everything heavy and that's as far as you're going to go. That's as far as your body's letting you go this morning. But if we can, you can bend a little bit more in your knee just to see if we can get a little bit further. We want to stretch our spine and our necks. We want to make sure we use the weight of that whole torso to get a nice stretch there. Palms flat on the floor. You're going to take your right foot back, then your left foot follows. You're going to push into your downward facing dog. I haven't done a sun salutations for quite a while, actually. Not with you guys anyway. So fingers and toes facing forward. We don't have to have our heels right down. Yeah, that's not going to make the downward dog any better. But if you've got the flexibility in your hamstrings, absolutely take your heels to the floor. Just make sure that your ears are in between our biceps and we're pushing our hips higher, which is chest towards the thighs. You're going to roll through to your plank. So we just shift our weight forward. We shouldn't have to sort anything out with our feet and toes because we've taken a nice step back anyway. Knees down onto the floor. Going to put the tops of our feet on the floor as well before we even start to move down. Then as we move down, we squeeze our elbows back. We lower ourselves down really slowly. You come all the way up if we can, but keep those elbows bent. Keep the elbows bent. So we lift up from the navel if you can, or we're here, yeah, but it's a bit too much pressure on our lower back. We're in our baby cobra. But whatever, we have our elbows bent when we lift up. If you have your arms straight to do an upward facing dog, brilliant. But then you need to bring your thighs off the floor as well. Get the height so that you're not just pushing the weight into your shoulders. Because if you have your thighs down and straight arms, it's extremely uncomfortable on the shoulders and the lower back. So we push through and we lift up, okay? Curl your toes under, push back into your downward facing dog.
just towards the thighs. So we're doing this sequence nice and slowly because that's the first one always is. Bring your right leg in between your hands. So we really lift into that lunge. And all I want you to do is very slowly bring your arms up to the side, staying in that nice strong lunge. If you're like, oh, bring it down to your knee if you need to at the back. Otherwise, lift up strong, eye gaze up, hands up for a little bit of a back bend. We take our eye gaze even further back. Hold it nice and strong here. Palms down, back to that foot at the front. You hop the back leg in. You bring your feet together. Hang your head heavy just here for a second or two. And inhale to rise. So we're going to do the second one nice and slowly as well. Let's just get the sequence. We'll do a couple after a little bit quicker. So you're going to inhale on the move. So you reach your fingertips to the ceiling for that extended mountain pose, shoulders relaxed. Big inhale while we're here. Turn your palms out. You exhale to come down. Because as we exhale, we're taking all the air away from our chest, which makes our lungs a little bit smaller. The rib cage can come down a little bit more. Maybe we can get a little bit closer to the thighs. Thinking about those belly breaths, whatever pose we're holding, we breathe in and we stick our bellies out. That just basically means you're making room for those lungs to get even bigger. Palms flat on the floor, your left foot goes back this time, followed by your right. You push into your downward facing dog. Lift those hips really high. Really, really high. So we've taken that really long step back so that when we roll forward into our plank with an inhale, we're in a nice strong plank. Knees down, flats of the feet on the floor, and you're going to squeeze. And remember your options. So you can squeeze down halfway and you lift for your cobra. So we don't come all the way down really and then lift up for a cobra. But if we come all the way down, which is absolutely fine, you can lift up for your baby cobra. So that's chest. If you needed to come all the way floor and you want to take that extension now, absolutely lift up to your navel, bent arms, or pushing all the way up through those hands. Big inhale, exhale, push back. Left foot comes in between your hands and you lift up slowly for that strong lunge. Remember, you can bring your knee down to the floor at the back if your balance is off today, or things just ache a little bit more. Lifting those arms up high and back for a little bit more of a back bend, palms facing each other. Wicked. Bring your hands down either side of that foot. The back one comes in. We lift up. We should hopefully be feeling a bit warmer now. We extend. We're going to do this a little bit quicker now. We've got that really nice, strong routine, yeah, with that lunge at the end. And we're going to make sure we make ourselves a little bit warmer. So you reach, you fold. Hands flat on the floor, right foot back, left foot follows. Push into your downward facing dog. You roll through to your plank. You come down to your knees and you squeeze. Reach right down. Halfway, choose your option. Lift up. Curl your toes, push back. Right down into that downward dog. Right foot comes in. You lift strong, all the way up into that lunge. Lift really nice and strong. Hands flat on the foot, flat on the floor, next to your foot. Lift up. Last time, we reach. Lift up. We fold. Try to do this along with your breath. Left foot back, right foot back. pushing into that downward facing dog. We roll through to our plank on our inhale. We bring our knees down and we squeeze down on that exhale. We take our option. Where are we going to go? We're going to push through and lift up. Curl your toes under, push back. Left foot comes in for that lunge. We lift strong last time. Lift really nice and strong. Hands flat on the floor. Other foot comes in. Just stay here in this fold for a little bit longer. And slowly bring yourself up. We finish where we started. So now everything's going to be on the floor. We're going to do those Yin Yoga poses. We're going to hold them for a few breaths, quite a few breaths, a couple of minutes each pose. So our first pose is going to be the staff pose. So just come down onto your bottom. So Yin Yoga, you hold the poses for a little bit longer than you would for your normal vinyasa or your normal hatha yoga, yeah? Yin is chilled. It's also a lengthen and strengthen. So with our staff pose, make sure you're on your sit bone. Move the glute muscle away, that bum cheek, move it out of the way, because we want to make sure we're actually sat on our sit bone and we have that stability. You're going to bring your legs in front of you. They're going to be nice and straight. You're going to have them, they don't have to be together. Yeah, my knees don't like being next to each other. So I'm going to have them about hip width. We've got to get comfortable. We're going to be here for about 2 minutes. So making sure that we're trying, this is a good one for our hamstring. That's what we want to make sure we're working. So I would normally say bend your knee, which is fine if you've got really tight hamstrings. But what we want to work on is trying to push them to the floor. Hands are just either side of your bottom. Your chest is forward, your eye gaze is forward, your shoulders are relaxed. So why are we doing Yin Yoga? So if you missed it at the beginning and I was saying why we do a lengthen and strengthen type of yoga rather than a high impact hatha or flow, it's because as we get older, muscle wastage happens. Yeah, some of you obviously are very young, but it just happens. Everyone's muscles do get a little bit weaker, or you might not be as flexible just in general. Collagen is already in our muscles. That stuff that you pump into your face to make it look tight, that's in our muscles. And that isn't good to have more of that than less muscle, because it starts to make things stiff. So what we need to do to try and counter that is strengthen and lengthen the muscle, which is why we would sit in a pose where that lengthen and flexibility is required. And here, pushing your legs into the back of the floor for those hamstrings. This is flexibility. This is lengthening. This isn't supposed to be super comfortable. We're not sitting here. We're supposed to be working the body and making sure it lasts us for a little bit, for a lot longer, not a little bit longer, for a lot longer. So Yin Yoga is great if you suffer from lack of flexibility as well, yeah? So we're just going to have probably another 30 seconds. I don't want to be too focused on the time, but I want you to think about your breath. You've got loads of time to think about your yogic breath as well. So we're breathing in. We're pushing our bellies out. We've started with this nice strong pose that we can find that yogic breath and remember to follow that through. Yogic breath, you breathe through your chest and out, breathe in through the abdomen as well. Lateral breath is just up here and you squeeze your abdominals. We want to open them. When you think you've taken in enough air, push your belly out a little bit more. See if you can get any more in and exhale. So we should feel underneath our hamstrings. I want you, if you were thinking, oh, I don't think I can press them into the back of the floor, a little limber, see if you can get them a little bit closer to the floor for one more breath.
Fab. We're going to open our hips and we're going to counter that pose. So we're going to come into our bound angle or our butterfly, or there's loads and loads of terms for this. So bound angle, if we're using a yoga term today. So we want to bring the bottom of our feet together. If you've got cushions around you or use yoga blocks, I'm going to tell you how you can use them to make it a little bit easy if you struggle. So if you can, bring your heels in as close to your groin as you possibly can. If that's not comfortable, take them away. We want to set up first. If you have blocks or cushions and you can't take your thighs out as much or your hips out as much, then you can prop them up just a little bit so it's not too much pressure around your groin area. We hold on to our feet and we're going to just sit here. So this is a great hip opener, yeah? And why do we care about that? Why do we need to do that? Just for mobility. That's what we're doing this for. It's for mobility. You know, when you wake up and you're like, oh, this is to avoid that all. So we want to make sure that we've got our shoulders relaxed. So we've worked out the legs now. We know where we want them to be. So are we pushing too much forward? Are we gripping onto those feet? If it's not comfortable, I want you to just relax your hands on your feet. Make sure you're on those sit bones. Give that a little wiggle. If it's hard, then you're sat on the skeleton. No problem. Chest and eye gaze forwards. We can close our eyes here as well, so that we can have that focus, taking it back to our breath. So at any point, if these moves become uncomfortable, you get pins and needles, or it's just too much of a strain, then we can bring them in a little bit. Just hold them, bit of support, bit of a limber, maybe up and down, just a little bit. And then we go back to our pose, because obviously the idea of Yin Yoga is to hold a pose rather than move it, but it does get uncomfortable after a while if you've got pins and needles and you're sat on something that you're like, oh. So this is a really great time as well if you struggle with your breathing pattern on nasal breathing, is to work on that. And sometimes it's not possible to nasal breathe, I do get that, but it's a better type of breathing if you can master it, because when we inhale through our mouth, all of it comes down into our lungs. Whereas if we breathe into our nose, all the little hairs in the nose do catch some of the rubbish that comes in with the air as well. So we want to always try and practice nasal breath, just in general, not just necessarily yoga. So remember, at any point, if you're like, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm going to actually be able to get out of this pose because it's got stiff fur, then just bring it up a little bit. Yeah, it's not actually getting stiffer. It might feel that way. It's actually getting looser. And that's where, if you join me tomorrow, we work on the joints and we make the muscles stronger as well. So just a nice, one more breath here. Nice deep breath. Amazing. Okay, so bring your knees in. So now we're going to counter that, and that's going to be nice. We're going to come into our child's pose. This is always a good one. Our resting pose. So knees just underneath your hips and sit back onto your heels if you can. If you can't, prop something underneath your bottom to your heels so that you try to create a nice neutral spine. So if you can and you are flexible enough, bring your head down to the mat and have your arms down by your side. Nice traditional child's pose. If this is not possible, what can I do? I'm up here, Kaz. Well, we can do our one potato, two potatoes. So we stack our hands and we just rest our head on top of our fists. That creates a little bit more of a straighter line if that's what you need. You can always extend if you
If that's uncomfortable for shoulders or what have you, you can extend and rest your head on the mat. But remember, try not to be sat here, because then you're putting so much pressure on the backs of the thighs. And we want you to relax. So we get a cushion or something so that we can feel that relax of just chilling, sitting on our heels.
This is a really good one. This is that counter for those hip openers, those extended legs. We've now got a really nice closed off, squeeze it together. Thinking about our breath, we have to focus more on our breath here because there's not so much space for our tummy to move. So we really need to make sure we're pushing it. Nice.
With the child's pose, it is a lovely resting pose when you've come out of exercise. But if you sit in it for quite a while, then you're obviously sort of stopping the full flow of circulation that goes to your feet. So we just wiggle our toes every now and then just to remember the circulation needs to keep pumping around so we don't get pins and needles. Yeah, it's not going to cut it off from your feet, but it might give you little pins and needles. So just give a little bit of a wiggle with those toes if you need to.
Through our nose and out through our nose, if we can. Nice.
Just another 30 seconds here.
Reap the benefit of having that bit of time for yourself this morning, of just relaxing, really. Yeah, like we are still putting the work in, but you're really focusing on the body with Yin Yoga, really focusing on it. I want you to sort of feel how things feel that you wouldn't normally think about. Like, can you feel what it's like to sit in this position? Like, how does your breath get affected by it? How are your arms affected by it? Sort of take the focus to a part of your body. Your feet are getting a little bit tingly. Give them a little wiggle. Work up. Can you feel the stretch on your thighs, on your quads? This is a good one for that. This is what we're strengthening and lengthening for this one.
Just one more deep breath here. We're going to come up. We're going to come up onto our hands. We're going to set ourselves up. So if you want to just give your feet a wiggle, we're going to make sure that our hips are over our knees, and we're going to come into just our horse stance. Before we do that, we're going to just do a quick prep. So just want you to push through your hands and lift yourself into your cat pose. So we lift our back to the ceiling. We hang our head and our chest. We hang our head on our chest heavy. Then we're going to just do a little squeeze, lift up. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, bottom up, eye gaze up for our cow pose. And then find your neutral pose. So you bring your shoulders up. Nice straight back. Eye gaze down, because if we've got our eye gaze up, then we aren't really lengthening the spine, and we want to create a nice straight line from the back of the head all the way down to the bottom. So how does this affect your wrists? How does this affect your shoulders? I want you to think about, is your back rounded? Take that time and sort of really take your thought to, is my back rounded? Could someone come along? Is it nice and straight? That's why it's always good to have your camera on so you can have a little look at your form. We're building up the strength in our shoulders with this one. Those hips, this is pressure on the hips. Yeah, but realistically, it's not a lot of pressure because we've got the support of our hands as well. But if you suffer with wrist problems, at any point, you can always stack your fists. Yeah, for a bit more strength, or you can come down to your elbows if you need to. But we want to try and create our head down a little bit more for that one. And obviously our back is still nice and straight, but we've come down, so it's on a slant now. But it's just thinking about our wrists. Through those shoulders, feel that. How does it feel? Is it feeling uncomfortable? Are you feeling comfortable? Are you like, we're in this position for a long time, it's a bit weird? That's all right. Our final strong pose is going to be our kneeling pose. So I will do that from this side and then do it from the front. So we're going to sit back onto our bottom, walk our hands back, hands just either side of our legs. This is our kneeling pose. Yeah, this one is not for everyone. What I want you to try and do, if you can, if you've got the flexibility, is actually sit on the floor with your legs outside. So this will require flexibility. This is one that you've got to think about whether you've got that flexibility in your thighs. Otherwise, feet on bottom. Bottom on feet. But if you can, take your legs out to the side for this nice hip opener. Proper lengthen and strengthen these quads. They should feel tight. I want you to touch them, feel them. No one else is touching you, but it's always good to see what part of the body is actually working when it comes to certain moves, so you know that you're doing them properly. This should be tight and hard right now. If we're sat on the floor, if we're not sat on the floor and we're sat on our heels, that's fine. It should still be tight, but we don't have the sort of gravity as much. So it should still feel tight, but we want to try and sit on the floor if we can. Little bit more for the calves as well. So they should feel nice and tight. Hands either side or where they're comfortable with this one. Shoulders relaxed, eye gaze and chest forward. These more intense ones, we won't hold them for as long. It is 11 o'clock. You know, I don't mean to run over, but I really wish we could do this for 45 minutes rather than half an hour. If you've got to go, I get it. I'm going to just hold this for a last breath. Okay, just sit with your legs crossed. Sit with your legs crossed. Or whatever's comfortable. If you want to stretch those legs out now, go for it. Just going to do a last little bit. Because we've been relaxing all the way through, really. We've had that contemplation. We've had time to think. We don't need that for the end today. We're just going to lift our arms nice and strong and high to the air. Fingertips, reach. Bring them nice and slowly down to your heart center. I'm going to wish you a fabulous day. Namaste. Don't forget our YouTube channel and all our other classes, and I'll see you next week.